I was a member of organized crime in New York, specifically a captain in the Colombo crime family. For about 17 years of my life, among many things that I did as part of that life, I ran a gambling operation, had a number of bookmakers working for me, and during the course of those 17 years, we had many people associated with sports, athletes, coaches, so on and so forth, that were gambling with us. It's very easy. I mean, it was easy back in my day when, in order to gamble, you had to seek out a bookmaker or get on a plane and go to Vegas. Today, it's that much more easier because we live in a global gaming community, and gambling is within reach of anybody in 5 minutes. I mean, they can go anywhere and start to gamble, whether it be online or in any one of the 48 states that have casinos and gambling available to them. So it's not difficult at all for one of these people to get trapped or caught up in this problem. There's tremendous money. College sports are big business on the street with bookmakers as well as legitimately in Vegas and places where it's legal to gamble. So, if you have an athlete, in a sporting competition that can give a bookmaker, an organized crime person, an edge in a competition, and certainly over a period of time, you string that in a couple of games, you're talking about substantial dollars. I mean, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions. It depends on the event. But it's very substantial. It's any game that has a line on it. Any competition where there is a betting line, somebody is taking book and somebody's betting on it. So that's the standard that you have to reach. Got a line on it, you're susceptible. Sometimes we wouldn't have to pick them because they would seek out a bookmaker and start gambling with one of our bookmakers. And when they obviously fell behind and got into trouble, that's when they would meet up with somebody like me. And we would make sure they would pay us one way or the other, whether it would be to compromise the outcome of a game or go wherever they needed to go to get the money. We would meet them that way. In other cases, we had a pretty good network out there. We would meet with players, coaches, referees in nightclubs, in restaurants. We'd see bars that they might hang out with. We'd get friendly with them. And before you know it, we'd introduce them to a bookmaker and start to get close to them. They would start gambling, and then they got themselves in a trap. The approach is always very subtle. Nobody's going to come up to an athlete and put a gun to their head and all of a sudden tell them, hey, you're going to start to gamble or you're going to throw a game. You get friendly, you get to know them a little bit, put your arm around them, give them something for nothing, take them out for dinner, let them use a car. Just get friendly, associate yourself with them. And then before you know it, you gain their confidence and talk to them about making a few bucks. A lot of these younger people don't have a lot of money to spare. And, you start to put ideas in their head. And they're very susceptible. They're young, they're naive, and they don't realize what they're getting themselves into. And, you hang that little carrot out there, hey, I can put a few bucks in your pocket. You don't have to struggle. And all of a sudden becomes very appealing. And they got to watch out for that. You have a basketball player. He's 6'2". He's a guard. He's a senior, pretty good player. You hang out with this guy a little bit again. He'll go to a bar or a restaurant, and you hang out at the same place. You get to know him a little bit, buy him a drink, maybe send a young lady over to him, get him excited a little bit. You see him 2, 3, 4 times, and before you know it, you have his confidence. Sit him down at the table. Hey, you're 6'2". You're a guard. You're a pretty good senior. But you're not going to the pros, right? Yeah, usually, yeah, I know. Let me ask you, how much money you got in your pocket? Oh, I'm broke. Really, you're broke? Man, every time you guys play, that arena is filled up, school's making a lot of money on you. Why should you be broke? What are you going to do when you get out of here? I hear you're a pretty good student, but, you got like a 2.2. You're not exactly a brain surgeon. What are you going to do? Well, I don't know. Let me tell you something. You're broke. You got no money in your pocket. You're a senior. You're going to be graduating soon. You need some money. Let me tell you what you're going to do. Tomorrow night, you're favored to win by 10 points. Don't win by 10. You can control the game a little bit. Win by 6, win by 5. You do that, here, got 10 grand, put it in your pocket. Lay the money on the table. Very hard for this young man to pass up. He's thinking about it for a second. Hey, don't blow the game. We don't want you to lose the game. We got some morality about us, but just don't cover the spread. Who's going to know? Takes that money, puts it in his pocket. We got him. We own him from that point. But what I found, because this is the approach we had, he'll do that 2 or 3 games, and all of a sudden these young people, they have a conscience, It's not easy to be doing something like that. It bothers you. You're worried. Are your teammates watching? Does your coach know? Is the referee sensing anything? It's on television. What's going on? So it starts to bother them a little bit, and they'll come back and say, you know what? I did this 2 or 3 games. I got 20 or 30,000. It's more money than I ever had. I need to stop. Well, that's where he's in trouble. Because my response would be, no, you're not stopping until I tell you. You're not taking money out of my pocket. This is the way it's going to go. Unless you want to go talk to your coach, you want to go tell law enforcement what you've been doing. Maybe your parents want to see how proud of you they are. You stop when I tell you to stop. And that's it. And this is very realistic. I mean, this is an approach that these young men and women maybe at this point, very, very hard for them to turn down. Once they do that, they're done. Guys in organized crime and gamblers, once they have you in their clutches, they're not going to let you go. You see, the problem is it only takes one mistake before you're totally exposed. And the likelihood of you coming out clean, if I were that guy, you'd never get away from me. Yeah, I'd have you in my grips, and you're not leaving until I've got everything that I want out of you. And when I have everything I want out of you, you're in trouble. You don't beat us. If you owe us money, you're going to pay one way or the other. So, I mean, it's very difficult. It would be a student's worst nightmare, an athlete's worst nightmare, a coach or referee. It's their worst nightmare to get involved with organized crime, especially in a gambling situation. Any type of gambling is bad and can lead into a problem for sports. I mean, somebody's gambling online, they're losing money on their credit card, they fall into a trap, they're associated with a game. You know, all of a sudden they start thinking, wow, maybe I can make it up on the sport that I'm playing in. You know, to me, any type of gambling, and in my experience, any type of gambling can lead to a real serious situation, and it's something that just should be kept really under control. It's their competitiveness. They want to raise the stakes, you know, in any competition that they're involved in. I found athletes to be extremely competitive, and just gambling on a game just raises that level of competitiveness for them. Gambling in poker raises that level of competitiveness, and they're certainly more prone than the normal person out there in most cases to gamble. My experience in the last several years is that these athletes can run up debts for themselves, $20,000, $30,000. Credit cards, credit with a bookmaker. I mean, the money can be substantial. Coaches and referees, the same thing. Obviously, they have a little bit more money to lose, but you know, the dollars are not insignificant. We're not talking about, you know, a few $100s where, you know, it would be easy for them to get out of it, somehow borrow a few $100s. You're talking about substantial money. When they lose that kind of money, they have no way out. I mean, they put themselves in a deep hole. Don't think you're going to make up the losses on the next game or the next poker game. You need to stop immediately. And obviously, if there's an organized crime situation, they're already in you know, serious trouble, and they have to report it to the authorities or get some help. I mean, this is not something they're going to be able to deal with on their own. And if they find themselves, you know, wanting to get to that next game or that next poker tournament and try to win that money back, they have a problem. Gamblers don't like to recognize that they have a problem, but they have a problem and they need to stop and seek help, because at that point it can only get worse. I don't think there is any form of innocent gambling, depending upon the personality of the person. You know, drugs are obvious. People are scared of drugs. They stay away from drugs because they feel, well, maybe I can get addicted and might cause, you know, further problems in my life. Alcohol, the same thing. Everybody's aware, well, if I take more than 2 or 3 drinks, you know, I know something's going to happen. Gambling, people don't think of it that way. Oh, I can gamble. It's not, you know, it's not a vice. It's not something I'm putting into my body. It's not going to intoxicate me. And slowly, 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 they draw themselves in and don't realize that gambling is just as addictive as either alcohol or drugs. And they really have to be careful of that, because it's a slow process that escalates all of a sudden very quickly, and before they know it, they're in a deep problem. Don't gamble, period. It's a black and white area for me. There's no gray area. I said, you know, I tell them, whether it be poker, that you can lose money in and maybe lead you into another problem, or any form of gambling whatsoever. You got 4 or 5 years in school, you're an athlete during that time, take gambling off the list. There's no upside whatsoever for a student athlete to be involved in any type of gambling while they're playing their sport and in school. And I carry that, you know, home fairly hard. I also tell them to watch the relationships that they're keeping. This is very, very important. You know, if they're hanging around with students that want to gamble, whether they be athletes or not, they can get drawn into a situation. And it's very, very important that they stay away from people that can lead them into a gambling situation. You make one mistake, You gamble with somebody one time, and you actually put your life and your future in that person's hands, because now they have something over on you. You're in violation. If it's reported, the NCAA and the people in charge are going to take this very seriously, as they do in major pro sports, and it's only going to go downhill and get worse for you from that point on. I am not surprised when I hear that a referee, gets caught up in a gambling situation, or a coach, especially today. We live in a global gaming community, and like I said, there's such easy access. These people are human beings. If they get themselves in debt, involving something outside of the game, well, it's easy for them to say, hey, I can make it up on a game. I can, give myself a little edge here. Risks are substantial, and organized crime people are always searching for these type of guys. A coach or a referee can have a tremendous impact on a game, and they are targets, not only from organized crime, but just from regular gamblers, from bookmakers, from guys on the street that like to gamble. They're targets. Athletes, coaches, referees, people associated with the game have to realize that they are targets for people that like to gamble. You can't imagine how easy it is to get caught up in a situation like this. It escalates so quickly. Before you know it, you're in debt for several $1,000s to the wrong people, and your mind goes on you. You're thinking of all different type of ways to get yourself out of it. I can't stress strongly enough, just stay away from the gambling. Just keep it. It's not part of your life during your time as an athlete.